WNST Super Bowl 52 will be broadcasting live from the Mall of America all week long. 2 weeks from now, I think between my trips to Lambeau Field and Cleveland and Pittsburgh and now Minnesota and then on to Indianapolis, this guy, a Midwesterner out of the fighting city of Chicago, Illinois, would consider me an honorary Midwesterner. I have plenty of scarves and long johns for this Minnesota thing, Eric Edholm, but I tell you, the Minnesota story really has taken a twist, and you know, you're a real historian about football and everything you write about out there, Pro Football Weekly, and before that, the Shutdown Corner and all the stuff that you've done. The Jacoby Jones play for me, because I was in the middle of it, and I'm there in Denver, and it meant everything to me, but this one may have even surpassed that one for my eyes.
Yeah, and you're a pretty positive guy, too, because a lot of, obviously, you're from Baltimore, so that changes your perspective, but a lot of people call that the Raheem Moore play. So I'm hopeful that this becomes known as the Stephon Diggs play and not the Marcus Williams play, not the tackle whiff that happened at the end. I was trying to think of some other, safety botches, Chris Conte against the Packers about 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And I had, I think I put on Twitter, I had written about 600 words about the just miserable, no good, punishing, awful playoff history for the Vikings and everything they've gone through. I mean, the Super Bowl losses were one thing, but those were like blowouts. I mean, all the sub-Super Bowl round losses they've had have had just one knife twist after another.
Well, we were a big part of that. Brian Billick being my partner here and being out there for that game. It was the day I met Brian Billick. Was that had to be the most heartbreaking day as a Vikings fan. Look, I mean, I'm a Ravens fan. We missed a kick up in New England, and Lee Evans had the ball in his hands, and we didn't go to this. I mean, there are some devastating losses, but I don't know that with 1 second left to go on the clock, the ball goes over your head in that way for the Saints. We will never see that happen again, and certainly not with the stakes of being a road favorite in Philadelphia with Case Keenum and a chance to bring the Super Bowl onto home turf 3 weeks from now. I mean, you and I have seen a lot of things. It's my 25th Super Bowl, Eric. I can't imagine the level of excitement we'll have in Minnesota. And I'm not hating on the Eagles because I got a lot of former Ravens friends there, with a lot of family members up there, quite frankly, the Jimmy Schwartzes and the Joe Douglas types and the Torrey Smiths. But, boy, a Minnesota Super Bowl at home, the league sort of needs something like that right now, right?
I think so, right? I mean, I think we came close maybe 30-something years ago when I think the Rams played down the road. But, right, we've never had that true feeling of this is your stadium, this is your home. For me, the most fascinating part is what is the crowd going to look like? What is that buzz. It starts around Thursday where the fans start rolling in. They want to experience the Super Bowl atmosphere. Obviously, for Vikings fans, they're going to be there all week. They'll be there before the media gets
And you know what? The
there.
Patriots fans might not come. I mean, we can make fun of the Jaguars, and if they somehow win and beat Tom Brady, I think the Jaguar fans would travel because they've never been, and there's some money down there and some SEC dough and whatever. I think the Jaguar fans would come up there and make it some fun. I think if it's Patriots, Vikings, there will be no Patriots fans. They'll just sell their tickets off it'll just be nothing but Vikings fans.
Yeah, I think so too, because I remember as far back as, well, I'm trying to remember the number, Super Bowl 39, I guess it would have been, when it was Eagles Patriots down in Jacksonville, and at that point they had gone to 3 and 4 years. Now Eagles fans hadn't been since 1980, so it was about 85-15, maybe 90-10 Eagles fans. And Patriots fans at the time had a reputation for being pretty good travelers, but you can only shell out so many dollars for road trips and Super Bowl tickets. At the time, they were like $2,000 a piece. So
there is nothing sexy about the Patriots playing in Minnesota if you're a Patriots fan, and especially the way the Celtics are right now. Everybody's sort of saving up their dough for Celtics playoffs, right?
I think you're right. Yeah, absolutely. And it is funny. I mean, your perspective changes, I suppose, when you won as much as they have. I mean, this is their seventh straight AFC title game. It doesn't even, when you say it, you're like, oh yeah, right, okay. It's unbelievable. I mean, nobody's done that. That's a record. That's something that may never happen again. So, yeah, they're a little bit numb to this whole thing, I think. And you're right. This would be completely dominated by the Vikings.
Eric Edholm is my friend. He is at Pro Football Weekly. You can follow him out there out of Chicago, Illinois, as well as on Twitter at Eric_Edholm, EDHOLM. He has a wonderful 1996 Ravens piece that you can Google up and find out on the internet as well. And getting ready for these games here this weekend, there's so many contradictions, right? Like you and I get together at the Combine in Indy, the draft, and off-season. Yeah. We're all talking about franchise quarterback. The league set up for offense. You got to throw the ball. You got to have explosives and verticals. You got to be able to play that way. And yet we look up here, Blake Bortles, Case Keenum, Nick Foles. You have 4 defenses, 3 defenses certainly, and then throw the Patriots in just on reputation alone and what they've built over a dynasty has been led as much by their defense as by Tom Brady and Belichick's philosophies. But Jaguars, Eagles, and Vikings, all about defense, and here they are. I guess they say offense sells tickets, defense wins championships, right?
Yeah, for sure. And what fascinates me, too, is of those 4 teams, the only one who really drafted and quote-unquote developed the guy who was supposed to be the franchise quarterback was Bortles, right? I mean, Eagles had Carson Wentz. That was their plan. The Vikings had Bridgewater. He gets hurt. They have to shift gears and go to Bradford. Keenum was, the forgotten third option. I mean, really the second option when he signed with the team. But you get what I'm saying here. It had no real bearing on any kind of future plans at the position.
Yeah, he was there to run scout team kind of, sort of. They never really thought they were going to be on with him, right?
$2 million he got this year. $2 million. I mean, the best $2 million I would say the Vikings have ever spent, but who knows? I mean, look, it's funny to think that Bortles is the one guy who the Jaguars drafted with the idea of, hey, number 3 overall pick, this is our guy. They threw him in there, started out okay in his career, took a dip down. Beginning of training camp, he had a 5-pick practice. His preseason was terrible. It's crazy to think that he's still standing when he was almost benched to start the year, when Chad Henne was a legitimate option to start. I mean, obviously they wouldn't be here with Chad Henne, but yeah, they've endured. So, right, it is about the defenses. Since like October 1st, these are 4 of the 5 best scoring defenses in the NFL. That said, you don't get there without some kind of complementary play. So hat tip to these guys, especially, I think about Foles and Bortles and kind of the guff they've taken. They've stood pretty tall and kept things in perspective as far as the negative attention that's come their way.
Well, look, man, ever since you wrote that story in the Tedeschi Trucks Band out there about the Jaguars, they've been unstoppable. Hey, maybe it's the decal on the side of the helmets or the fact that they sell their games off to London. And look, I flew off to London, and they were beating our ass 41-0 before lunchtime. So I should have some more respect for them. They've now gone in and cleaned Pittsburgh's clock twice in Pittsburgh this year, something we don't do in our best years around here. So maybe they should warrant more respect than we've given them?
I think so. I mean, look, they have such a unique style to prepare for, and obviously you can talk about Bortles if you want, and he made plays on Sunday, but really that power run game behind a good offensive line, and that kind of spurs them offensively. And then defensively, not a whole lot of weaknesses. I realize they just gave up 500 and something yards to Ben and company. That game got off the rails a little bit, so I kind of put that to the side for a minute. They can rush the passer. They can close down your run lanes. They can run and chase at linebacker. And, oh, by the way, they probably have the best pair of outside corners in the NFL. Those 2 touchdown catches against against A.J. Boye, that's Antonio Brown making otherworldly plays on both of them. So I'm not sure there are 3 receivers in the NFL that catch both of those balls. So, I still say this is a great defense, and I think they will do a good job. They match up well against New England. So
they looked fearless on Sunday. I mean, they looked like they got off the bus like they belonged, and that was sort of the swagger my Ravens had back in 2001, that the good defenses have when they get off the bus on an 18-degree day in Pittsburgh, and somehow they're the winner, right? I mean, when you do that, and you don't do it on fake punts or, block kicks or, right, some sort of squirrely way, you went into Pittsburgh and you won the game. I mean, you got a big lead, you blew it, you came back and still figured out a way to win.
Not to make this a history lesson, but when you brought that up, it made me think. That AFC Championship game, I think it was like 16-3 against the Raiders, something. That was the most dominant, like low-scoring performance I think I've ever seen, where they just throttled them, and then you could see they have the ability to do that. I mean, they have the ability to punish you if you don't have greatness at quarterback, some kind of element that Look, Ben had some bad moments, but he also made some big plays on Sunday, too. Brady will do the same on this coming Sunday. This is a Jaguars defense that can, take apart mortals, but can they stop an immortal? Can they make those massive plays, those defensive touchdowns? They've got 8 of them this year. That's what they're going to need to win, I think. I just don't think running the ball 45 times and hoping Blake Bortles plays turnover-free ball is really going to propel them to a Super Bowl. They've got to get that next level performance, I think, from their defense.
Eric Edholm joining us here from Pro Football Weekly. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. That's EDHOLM. All of our WNST programming brought to you by D&L Window Tinting. 26 years now of tinting everything. Cars, boats, businesses. We're getting some snow around here. They put the shades on the sun. They take the squint and the glare away from that snow and ice on those very white, bright days. Parkville and White Marsh, they're there for you at D&L Window Tinting. Also brought to you by Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need Carl Delmont and our friends at Freedmont Mortgage. Buying, selling, refinancing, or just learning and dipping your toe in the water to figure out where you need to be. The folks at Freedmont are there to help you at Freedmont.com. Eric Edholm joining us here from Pro Football Weekly. We felt bad about 4th and 12 and Marvin and the ball going over our heads and Kennedy and Weddle and how our season ended at home and the demoralized feeling on New Year's Eve that the season's over. Dude, I don't know how you pick up the pieces in New Orleans, right? I mean, like that's an otherworldly. I know you wrote about bad beats a couple of months ago. That's an otherworldly kind of beat. I'm an O-line Houston Aller fan, and I remember that comeback against the Bills and what that represented when you blow that kind of a big lead. But when you have the game won and you're marching on, much like maybe the Bengals did a couple of years ago in that stupid incident with the Steelers at the end of the game. I mean, literally snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory.
Yeah, that's a great parallel. I think that I had kind of not thought about that Bengals-Steelers game, but the Saints pulled themselves out of this hole. 17-0 to me, when that ball was intercepted in the red zone, I thought it's over. I mean, I don't know how the Saints are going to turn this thing around the way the Vikings were playing defense, but they did. They chipped away. Marcus Williams, the guy who would be the GOAT, made a huge pick, got him back in the game. They had a chance. They had 2 chances to win the game. To lose it in that fashion is just so brutal. Now, could Diggs have caught that ball and gotten out of bounds? Yeah, I wrote about that last night. I mean, look, you can't blame it on one guy. There could have been another scenario where he actually makes the play and they still lose the game. So, but you're right. I mean, this season especially, it changed the direction of what we've seen the past 3 years from the Saints. They were a downward trending team in a lot of eyes. They were the 4th best NFC South team in some people's minds. So, this was supposed to be the Bucs here. The Panthers were back on the rise, all that. The Saints flipped that thing, and they got a home playoff game. And Breeze was playing well this year, but he wasn't doing it alone. So has that window closed now? Drew's a free agent. I mean, he says he's going to be back, but, they still have to figure that out. And I think they're going to be competitive again, but those opportunities are just so rare and so tough to come back from.
Man, you've written about on the field, off the field, certainly around here. We got 30,000 empty seats, and the knee affected the team here, and bad offense, and all those football-related issues we have here. But by and large, we're going to get out to Minnesota 2 weeks from now, and I guess if the Vikings are there to be the biggest party in the history of the world, it'll be 5 degrees out. We'll be building ice sculptures and talking about the league. But at least for me this week, I can honestly say this might be the first week I've had in 15 weeks around here since the Wembley knee where I am talking about football, offense, defense, X's and O's, matchups, players making plays, miraculous plays, good plays, football stuff where we sort of needed that. The league sort of needed that this weekend to have a really good group of games because this wildcard game stunk 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you're right. And even if you want to sort of overlap the discussion with like bad refereeing. Obviously, we've heard a lot of people. You look on Twitter, people are like, "Oh, these refs are terrible. How do they get in a divisional round game and all these?" Look, even if you're able to kind of block out some of that, because I think people are now looking for bad calls and looking for reasons to hate referees and stuff. You want to lump that in with the off-field stuff. That's fine as far as I'm concerned. I agree. The league really. The numbers may not have reflected it as much as people thought it was, but it took a hit this year. There's no question. And
every time a receiver grabs the ball and goes down and cradles and rolls over, I know I can go take a leak, get a beer, watch a little Guy Fieri. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Go take a walk and come back 6 minutes later, and they're going to adjudicate whether it was a catch or not. Literally, right? I mean, you know that, and that is tiresome. It really is. It makes you want to change the channel, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, and even if you are gifted with a great play at the end, like the Diggs thing, or even if you are, given a kind of a great shootout or a game that comes down to the final moments, like, the two games that happened in Pennsylvania over the weekend. I mean, still, is it going to be clouded a little bit by some shaky calls that you're going to sit there and fester over? Yeah, absolutely, but sometimes the ending, and those things can kind of wipe out a lot of that. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think, if we get at least one great game next Sunday, and at least there's some kind of sizzle in the Super Bowl matchup, whether it's a Vikings home game, whether it's Brady going for history, whatever that may be, that talk will remain. It'll still be a pro football discussion as opposed to an anti-pro football discussion.
Well, let's discuss the final team we have not sort of pieced together here, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're all trying to make heads or tails of the Nick Foles thing and saying, is he that guy from 5 years ago in that Chip Kelly offense? Can he be that for a day? Can they be good enough to win at home against a dome team coming in with a lot to play for? This is a really intriguing football game, and yet again, as Doug Peterson says, nobody's betting on us. Well, right. I mean, he's seen the Vegas numbers. They're an underdog again at home, and there's a real lack of respect for Nick Foles. And I think through that, sort of a lack of respect for the defense there as well, which, as he pointed out, the whole team was 13-3. The quarterback was a big part of that, but they're a pretty good football team.
Yeah, they are. And I don't know if they're Super Bowl good or not. We'll find out next week. But you're right. I mean, that's what I was saying when I picked the Eagles to win this game the other day. I thought, hey, the Falcons have been hot. They've been on a nice run. They're going to roll in there with a ton of confidence. But don't forget about what this defense has done this year. And don't forget what Jay Ajayi can do in a good game. Granted, there were some shaky exchanges there, a fumble, all that stuff. I mean, the Eagles made a ton of mistakes in the first half and were frankly lucky to be down 10-9 at that point. They should have been down 2 scores, I felt like, with all the mistakes they made. Dropped interceptions, things like that, the muff punt. Yeah.
And none of that has anything to do with Carson Wentz, right? Like, literally, that sort of stuff.
Exactly. I mean, this is... They're going to have to play a lot cleaner game, obviously. I mean, that's just they can't afford to do that. Now, the Vikings also failed to shut the door on the Saints, so they showed a little weakness as well. But I just think the Vikings are a little bit more complete team. They've had now 15, 16 weeks to work with Case Keenum as a starter. Nick Foles has been in there 4 or 5 weeks. It's a little bit of a different feel, so the quarterback thing does play into the entire offense, obviously.
Eric Edholm joining us here from Pro Football Weekly. You can follow his journey out on Twitter as well at Eric_Edholm, one of our defending champions around here. All right, so this is your chance, and I hope we get together in Minnesota and at least chat a little bit about the game and the offseason and all the crap going on and the draft and all that. But the Ravens and how it finished up for them, I thought we were going to see 10 coaches. I mean, I thought Marvin was done, right? I mean, you look around the league, I thought maybe Jerry would make a move in Dallas. I mean, all these, Tampa, I mean, a lot of places, Cleveland, we thought there'd be moves. When the 4th and 12 happened and I was walking down from the press box with my jaw open that the season was over and I wasn't getting any barbecue in Kansas City and, I canceled all my January plans and all that, I thought to myself, this could really be held here. This could be an owner saying, you know what, this just isn't happening. 3 years in a row, 4 out of 5. Let's just go in a different direction because that's what many teams in the league have done historically. Now, fast forward 2.5 weeks later, not as many jobs out there, a little more conservative through all the teams and through the league. And certainly here with the Ravens, it's it's like 4th and 12 never happened. A little change in defensive coordinator, promote from within, older, outgoing DC, keeping the quarterback, keeping the coach, keeping the coordinator, bringing in a quarterback coach. Let's go play ball. I mean, there's nothing hair-raising going on in here, but the fans are certainly on edge in my market, for sure.
Yeah, and doesn't it remind you a little bit of, we were just talking about the Saints, where they were last offseason? Remember, they were all, maybe a little more chaotic down there, a little bit more, and they'd had a worse record. I think they'd had 3 straight 7-9 seasons. Ravens have been a little more competitive, obviously.
And their defense stunk for a decade like our offense has stunk the last 4 years, right? Yeah.
I mean, that's really where it's at. And so you look at the Saints, the improvements they made on defense without making major changes. Granted, they did a coordinator change last year, but still, I mean, they were a completely different team. They were able to run the ball successfully. They were able to play defense. The special teams, a few gaps here and there, but they were pretty good on that side of the ball too. So I could see the Ravens making a Saints-like turnaround next year. Is it going to require some new faces, some new energy on that offense? Absolutely. But I almost feel like that is maybe, I'm not saying that's the reason they didn't make a change, but I think they could look at New Orleans and say, boy, that feels similar to where we should be. And does that raise the stakes? And if things don't happen next year, maybe there is a change. But I look at how the Saints, Sean Payton was almost traded last offseason. It felt like this thing was sort of careening off the edge. They turn it around. I think the Ravens have at least the opportunity to do that this coming season.
Well, we'll be talking about that through the draft. And when you talk about the Saints and the Vikings and the Eagles and the Jaguars, yeah, there's some money and, yeah, there's some free agency and there's some players in plug and they've done all that. But it really is about the draft, and it is about getting those players on the field. And around here, we're still looking at the Brashad Perrymans and the Matt Elams and the Arthur Browns, and now wherever we are with Kamalea Correa. The top draft picks have not gotten on the field here as often as they need to and play as well as you need them to in order to be right now the Vikings or the Eagles or the Saints or those teams that have felt like they're trending in that direction this season.
It's so funny because you could have a team like the Saints that had one of the best first-year rookie draft classes of all time. They had Kamara was the rookie of the year on the offensive side of the ball. Lattimore the defensive rookie of the year. Marcus Williams, forget the play at the end, had 4 picks this year. Had a pick in the game yesterday. Other guys, other contributors, Ryan Ramczyk starting tackle. So one draft class can really kind of change your whole perspective. It doesn't happen all that often right away, but it does. It does happen from time to time. We know that Ozzie, even though his recent history has been a little shakier, has had some of those banner classes in the past. We know Eric DeCosta is still there. We know the rest of a really good scouting staff remains in place. They're bound for a little bit of a bounce back in that regard. Draft a wide receiver and have him be good. That might be a good thing. So we'll see. Sometimes it's the second-year effect. Maybe Marlon Humphrey turns into next year's Lattimore. Who knows? So, I look at the Patriots. Yeah, they have a ton of quote-unquote homegrown talent. But they had 4 draft picks this year, and I don't think any of them have played a lick for them. They just haven't contributed. So it's funny how those things, they're not, obviously drafting is crucial, but it can also have a delayed effect too, where in their second or third year, that's when those players really become forceful, impactful players.
All right, dude, I'm giving you $1. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? You staying Patriots, going chalk on me here, Eric?
I kind of want to pick the Vikings. I really do. I'm very close. I'm going to say Patriots over Vikings, but I think the Vikings have an excellent chance.
Well, let's go see how they play this weekend and how they lace them up. It's been a nice season. I hope to see you in Minnesota. I'll be the guy in the corner with the scarf freezing, okay? Look for me.
All right, fair enough. I'll be there in my shorts, so I'm used to this stuff. Right?
My Venezuelan blood does not like the Midwest in January or February. So I'll be the guy in the 3 pairs of Long Johns there, huddled up around a cup of coffee like it's a campfire.
Coffee's on me then. How about that?
You got it, brother. I'll see you in a couple of weeks, man. Thanks for coming on as always.
Pleasure's mine.
You got it. Eric Edholm, Eric _EDHOLM. You can find him out of Pro Football Weekly as well. One of the good dudes in our business. We're going to be out doing all things Super Bowl in Minneapolis, actually in Bloomington, Minnesota at the Mall of America 2 weeks from now. Luke will be riding shotgun on that journey for the week, so that all begins on the 29th of the month. Every day this month, I am releasing a chapter of Purple Rain 2. This week, chapters 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all coming out about Ray Lewis and O.J. Brigance and Art Modell and Joe Flacco and the drafting of Joe Flacco and all that good stuff. The hashtags are all at Purple Rain 2. I am sharing them, and they're also a part of our morning newspaper, which is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Anything you miss on the radio, you can find in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. You can listen when you want, where you want, how you want. It is the BuyAToyota.com audio vault. Reminder, the Ray Lewis Canton Pro Football Hall of Fame thing is happening in 2.5 weeks, August 2nd through 5th. We're running bus trips out. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's our 25th anniversary of the beginning of our trips, so I am especially excited about this one, so you'll want to be paying attention to that. Throw me an email, nasty@WNST.net, or find us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and, of course, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home, talking sports, getting you ready for championship weekend. It is the SSV on WNST. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 in WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.